Welcome to the Balm and Gilead HIV Ministry Best Practice. Thank you so much for joining us today at 2 o'clock, where our presenter is Greater Mount Calvary Holy Church, where Bishop Alfred Owens is the senior pastor. And presenting their HIV ministry today will be Elder Katrina Pitts. Before we start our best practice today, want to invite you to be a part of our noonday series every day this week. This is the National Week of Prayer for the Healing of AIDS, and we hope that your congregations and the people in your community are engaged in this 24th Annual Week of Prayer for the Healing of AIDS. Every day this week at noon, we are having prayer and education, 30 minutes of power. We had a great time at 12 o'clock today with Reverend Cynthia Hale and the people at Orshore talking about in-home testing. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock, our prayer will be led by Bishop O.C. Allen, senior pastor of the Vision Church of Atlanta, down in Atlanta, Georgia, and our health focus will be Black teens and HIV/AIDS today. And that will be led by the folks from Advocacy for Youth. Next week, our Best Practice series will be led by Brentwood Baptist Church down there in Houston, Texas, where the senior pastor is Reverend Dr. Joe Ratliff. So please go on our website, www.balmingilead.org, and register for all of these upcoming events, tomorrow's noonday prayer, as well as next week's HIV Best Practice series with Brentwood Baptist Church. My name is Pernessa Seal, and I am the founder and CEO here at the Balm in Gilead. Our technician is our Director of Capacity Building and Training, Ms. Ashley Ramsey, who is doing all of the technical stuff here. And the person you probably talked to at one point in time is Elder Carrie Goodman, who is our executive administrator. So we are all here. We thank Greater Mount Calvary Holy Church for the great work that they're doing in Washington, D.C. They are really leaders for all of us in this work, and I'm just so happy that they have come and are sharing the great work and best practices that they do at Greater Mount Calvary. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Elder Pitts to take us through the great work of Greater Mount Calvary Holy Church in Washington, D.C.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all can hear me. I have a little echo. Well, I'm delighted to be here today and to talk to you about our best practices. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm excited today to talk to you about Greater Mount Calvary Holy Church best practices. We have been on the forefront for a long time, so I'm going to share a little bit about what we've done in the past and what we're doing now and what we hope to do. I want to thank Dr. Pernessa Steele for her great work through the years. I have been following the Balm in Gilead. Oh, my gosh. It's been about over 10 years. I remember when our bishop sent us to the first conference in Hilton Head. So, Dr. Steele, thank you for still supporting the faith community and keeping us educated and moving forward. And all of her team who helped put these best practice series together. And I also want to send a special thanks out from Bishop and co-pastor of Greater Mount Calvary Holy Church. I ask that you please keep Bishop Owens in prayer. He recently had a mild heart attack. He's doing much better now, but he's getting older, and we just want to keep him covered in prayer. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. Just to give you a little history and background of our work through the years. Back in the 1980s, we all know that the epidemic, what was going on at that time, we lost many family and friends. along with witnessing that, we realized that this was happening in the midst of our congregation. So Bishop Owens, along with a member of Greater Mount Calvary, whose name was Reverend Andre Scott, got together and organized the HIV and AIDS ministry. And one of the things that we first did was, because we saw what was happening in our congregation, we started with volunteer caregivers. At that time, people didn't have the support they needed, so the whole church came together, all the different auxiliaries. Our church at the moment is on roll, 7,000 members. I'm not sure how many members we had back then, but I'm sure we had maybe at least 2,000 or 3,000. And we worked across the whole church to have teams that went to bathe people, went to pick up groceries for people, help relieve family members who were caring for persons who were infected. So all the auxiliaries, from the nurses to the ushers to every auxiliary came together to some way support members who were in our congregation or who had families who were facing some of these challenges of dealing with the epidemic at that time. So that's how we really got started. We also realized during that time, with the loss of life, there were many people who were passing away, and churches would not bury them. They wouldn't hold any funerals for them. They wouldn't. They just was totally not aligned with the compassionate side of this epidemic. And our Bishop Owens, he actually paid for funerals out of his pocket because he believed that everyone should die with dignity and respect. So we did that. And then, of course, most of you know, as time changed, new medications came out, cocktails came out, and we saw people beginning to live longer. So while we still had our support ministry as far as the caregiving, we decided that we needed to educate the community, not just our congregation, but we needed to educate the community. So we actually partnered with GW, George Washington University, here in the District of Columbia. We partnered with the local Department of Health, and we created a education, I think it was like 8 weeks, where you will come in and get education about HIV. And that was crucial during that time because in the black community, people didn't have access to what was this epidemic. And we wanted to begin to teach people, help decrease stigma, and so they can know how it's contracted and how they will not get infected from it as well. So we went through, we had these classes that were, some of them were taught in partnership with a DC Department of Health. They taught some of the classes. Some of our members who were educated about the matter taught some of the classes. So we shifted from caregiving to education. And even back in the 80s and early 90s, while women, African American women, were not being discussed, we began to educate African American women about contracting the virus. So that's kind of how we got it started the work. One of the things that we ran into, the big controversy, was we gave out condoms. We've been giving out condoms for years. We even had people in our own congregation who felt like you should not give out condoms. But as a church, we realized that yes, people come in on Sunday, and yes, they enjoy the music and they enjoy the sermon, but that doesn't mean that they walk out the door and they're not having sex. And because what we thought in the congregation, we felt it was important that if that person made that decision, that they had some form of protection. So our church has been giving out condoms for years. We also started an HIV positive support group. We realized that people who were positive needed a safe group of people to come in who had the spiritual healthiness to be able to help them navigate through the virus. And so we had a men's group and a women's group. And one of our men's groups, they met for an entire year, and they formed such a bond. We had a young man who was in the men's group. He was separated from his father as a youth. His father was incarcerated. He was a faithful member of the HIV/AIDS ministry. He attended church faithfully, but he was prostituting on the street, and he was HIV positive. And so, in the midst of that support group, the men was able to call him out about it, but such in a loving way that he began to get on his regimen. He came off of the street. He was dealing with some depression. He was able to get help. He started a job. He got in a program and started a job. So out of that, he was able to get on a different path of wholeness and wellness, not only with his dealing with his virus, but also just living a healthy life. So we really appreciate having those support groups. So that's a little bit of what Greater Mount Calvary has done. We do HIV testing as well. The church started testing, oh my gosh, it's been about 5 or 6 years now. This is 2013. It's been probably in the beginning, maybe about 2005, 2004. We started providing on-site testing ourselves. Prior to the volunteers of the church providing the rapid testing, we partnered with other community providers who would come into our outpatient substance abuse program and provide on-site testing. Greater Mount Calvary actually had a substance abuse ministry in 1985, a prison ministry in 1986, and officially started the HIV/AIDS ministry in 1990. So we had a young woman come along, pull those three ministries together, and created Calvary Healthcare. Seeing the ability to have the nonprofit, we realized we can have a greater impact in the community with Calvary Healthcare. So Calvary Healthcare was formed, which now I'm the executive director of. And so Calvary Healthcare trains the volunteer staff to be able to do testing, on-site testing. We also have a mobile medical unit in partnership with the church. So we just drive that around in the community. We partner with other churches who are hosting health fairs, who are doing different events in the community, and we bring our mobile unit. It has it has a waiting room and then 2 rooms to see patients. So we do HIV testing, we do glucose reading, cholesterol, blood pressure, and BMI, height and weight. We do those. So we take that mobile unit out into the community. And we find that it's been important that we take it out in the community because some people never leave their area. And a lot of times people don't go to the doctor on a regular basis. It just depends on their economic situation, whether they have health care or not. And so we bring that out and we do HIV testing. We've had a good success with connecting people to care immediately to treatment, and they've been successful in staying on treatment. So far, we've been able to work with a community provider. Once we test them and they're positive and we send them to a place for treatment, we stay in contact with them and the provider. And the provider sends them back to us to provide, where we can provide the spiritual support. So the other thing we do, we have a outpatient substance abuse treatment program. Within the treatment program, we offer 8 weeks of HIV education. And because we know that sometimes we have IDU users within the program or persons who drink alcohol so heavily that they may not understanding at the time of an intimate act, may not be able to think right, to use protection, and to have a full comprehension of what's taking place. So we provide 8 weeks of education to those who are in substance abuse treatment. And of course, not only with our mobile unit, but we try to make sure that we stay out in the community and provide education and awareness. We have recently, the last 3 years, had some funding around the female condom. So what we did, we went to hair salons, barber shops, we went to nail salons, we went everywhere where women would hang out, and we educated the stylist and the salon manager and the barbershop owners about the female condom and the benefits to it and how it differs from the male, so they can be able to educate their clients. And so we really, it was a small group of grantees, and we were able to do a marketing campaign on the buses and the metro system and around the female condom distribution and education. So we made sure that our education for African American women, we started a program called Sister Connection. It is for women whose current partner is incarcerated or recently released from incarceration, who's on some type of supervision. And we provide them with 5 weeks of education. We offer incentives. We use the sister intervention, the CDC sister intervention. But we realized that there were some missing pieces to that, so we talk about anal sex within that. We talk about condom use, the female condom, female analogy. And we also talk about gender norms, some of the challenges that women face. So it's an excellent program, and we've been doing that for the past 3 years. We're in our 4th year now. We also have a program for African American heterosexual men. It's called Using the NIA intervention from CDC. There's not many interventions that talk to the heterosexual male population. So we do that with men. And those are some of the education targeted for a specific population. As you can see, she has a photo up of our HIV/AIDS ministry. The older woman to the right, she is our former HIV/AIDS ministry director, Ms. Audrey. And that's us out in the community with our education and our Safer Sex Kits, sharing what we can. Some of the other things that we've done, Greater Mount Calvary decided we had a HIV/AIDS ministry, we had a cancer support ministry. We pulled everything together, and we no longer have an HIV/AIDS ministry. We have a health and wellness ministry. So we're trying to address all of the health concerns within our congregation and our community. If you could go to the next slide, Ashley. It should be the tool slide. Some of the things that we've done, Bishop Owens, in his sermon, he talks about HIV and AIDS. So was co-pastor and our associate pastor. I think it was for international, the HIV International Conference that came. He preached a sermon and shared some information that came out. I think it was New York Times. And so we did testing after the service. We tested almost 70 people. And people, it was hot. It was July. But we had people lined up to take an HIV test. And that is phenomenal for a church, because sometimes people feel like and these were regular members, so they knew the people who were providing the test to them, but they were open to be honest and to share, knowing, I think, our reputation of being confidential and maintaining people's privacy has helped us for people to feel comfortable receiving testing from their brothers and sisters who worship with them every Sunday. So we had 70 people get tested, and we had one young man who tested positive. And we were able to connect him to care, and we're still connected with him now, just keeping him encouraged and being there to him. We've also done awareness information in our bulletins. We've put out distributed flyers throughout the church. We use the specific HIV calendar. So we have National Testing Day. We do something, of course, for Black People's Prayer and all of Baltimore Gilead events. We support those with either prayer vigils or doing something special around those times. World AIDS Day. October, we take the month to share something every week about HIV, a fad, what you can do, those type of things. We use the church fans. We actually, one year, we took the church fans and we put information on those, and well, everyone has a church fan on Sunday, so it was a good way for people to keep the information before them. We partner with our Calvary Bible Institute that soon will be accredited for an associate's degree, where we can provide a full semester of HIV education. And of course, we set time aside for prayer and fasting for persons who are living with the virus, for the family that supports them. We also make sure we educate the family. We have a one-on-one counseling. We've had many a times people have revealed to their family that they are HIV positive, and the family it's very hard for them to deal with. So they will ask myself, or we have two other members of the team who will go in and talk to the family with the person, help them process what does that mean, answer their questions. You know, sometimes people have, do I have to bleach everything? Do I have to do these things? Some of the things that they may not be able to ask anyone, we're there to provide support for the family too. It's important for anyone who's positive to have a strong support system. So we're doing a lot. That's kind of what we're doing in a nutshell. The next slide, if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take any questions.
So right now we're going to open up the lines, and if anyone has a question, please feel free to ask. We have one question, and it's asking, did you receive any grant funding for your programming?
In the beginning, yes.
Okay, the question again is, did you receive any grant funding for your programming?
Now we
Okay, Elder Pitts, another question that came in is, how many people have you tested over the past year, and of that amount, what percentage tested HIV positive? Okay, the question again is, how many people have you tested over the past year, and of those people, how many persons tested HIV positive?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. I want to say, off the top of my head, I want to say 189, and I want to say 2. I want to say 2 people was HIV positive that did not know their status. That did not know their status at all over the last year.
Okay, great. And we're going to ask this other question again because we couldn't hear you. The question was, did you receive any grant funding for your programming?
Okay. We currently receive grant funding now. In the early years, we didn't receive any funding. So all of the things that I talked about that they did in the 80s, in the 90s, we started receiving grant funding after we established Calvary Healthcare. So 2000 and on, probably about 2001 to 2002, we received some funding, and then we didn't receive any more funding until about 2008. So we continue to operate off of assistance from the church, and then we got grant funding later to do some of the programming that we're doing now.
Okay, and we have a question. We're going to unmute the line for Pat Lee. So, Pat, you can go ahead and ask your question. Pat, are you there? Okay, next we're going to move on to Janice Sloan, who has her hand up to ask a question. Janice, you may ask your question now. Okay. Another question that came in is, how do you measure the impact of your programs?
Well, within the last couple of years, we've created different evaluation tools. So process evaluation, how many people we've tested, how many people we've screened, what's their demographic, age, outcomes. We have not been able to measure our support group in quantitative data. We can in qualitative data, which means that we can tell the benefits that people have shared with us of being a part of being a part of the support group. Our other programs, like for the Sister Connection, for women who are intimate partners currently incarcerated or recently released, we are doing a multi-site evaluation, so we have different evaluation tools. For our female condom education, because in order for people to use the female condom, we have to go out and educate them, because if you just look at it, you probably wouldn't use it. So after the education, we did a pre- and post-test, and then there were some focus groups that was done as well, and there was a cost study evaluation to show the effectiveness of what we're doing was cost effective and also decreased transmission here in the district.
Okay, great. We did have, if anyone else has questions, you can input your question into the chat box, and we'll make sure that your question gets asked and answered. Pat Lee did submit her question, and that question was, what types of things were included in your Safer Sex Kits? Elder Pitt?
Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now. Yeah, what types of things were included in your Safer Sex Kits?
We had 3 female condoms, because it takes about 3 times for a woman to feel comfortable using a female condom. We put male condoms. We put flavored lubricants. So we have pina colada, bubblegum, kiwi, strawberry, water-based lubricant. We have a warming sensation lubricant, so it warms to the touch. What else did we have in there? So we had lubrication, male condoms, female condoms. We put instructions for the male condoms, because we find many times people don't properly know how to use the male condom. instructions for the female condom, some education information about HIV and STIs, and our contact info. And we decided to do something cute. I think it's on one of those slides. You can see the leopard print purses. So it's inside of those pouches, and it's really cute. The ladies love that. And then we just recently designed a new one that the ladies like as well. So they're not giving out what everyone can see what's inside. So people have some sense of privacy when they receive them.
That was a great question. Another question that came in, and this is actually a great question, and you can expound upon it a lot more. Did you lose church members over the discussion to start an HIV ministry, and what did you do to gain buy-in from the congregation?
I wasn't here when they first started, so I don't know if they lost membership. I do know when we started the condom distribution, that was a big controversy even within our own church and from outside of our church. But I think the leadership, by them talking about it from the pulpit and supporting it from the pulpit and witnessing the loss of life and the struggle that people were having, the church coming together and organizing to support persons who were infected, that all of that brought them buy-in. So someone couldn't come to our church and not know that this was happening, and then just walk away. I think the compassionate heart of any person came forward versus, people just saying, "Oh, I'm out of it." So I think that helps provide the buy-in. But the leadership supporting it was the true buy-in.
Okay, great. And if anyone had any final questions, we'll take those now. If you have questions, you can submit it into the chat box. We want to thank Elder Pitts for this very thorough best practices of Greater Mount Calvary Holy Church. We thank them for their support and partnership with the Balm in Gilead over the years. We want to send our prayers to Bishop Owens and his speedy recovery, and also to the ministry and staff of Greater Mount Calvary Holy Church. Elder Pitts, we thank you so much. You know I have very, very, very sincere thoughts of thanks towards you, and we thank you for participating with this. We want everyone to join us for the Balm in Gilead National Fair. Again, we have on the screen right now the contact information for Elder Pitts and Calvary Healthcare. You can see it on your screen now. And also, tomorrow, don't forget to join us for our noonday prayer and education, 30 minutes of power with Bishop O.C. Allen of the Vision Church of Atlanta and Advocacy for Youth, talking about Black teens and HIV today. And also, don't forget our next HIV Ministry Best Practice Series, which is the next Tuesday, March the 12th at 2 p.m. And we will have Brentwood Baptist Church, where Reverend Dr. Joe Ratliff is the pastor. Again, from Dr. Pernell Cecile and the staff of the Balm in Gilead, we would like to thank you for joining us for this HIV Ministries Best Practice Series. Thank you so much.